Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you're trapped in hell. Actual hell. The ground beneath you is so hot it's melting the rubber on your shoes. Your skin is peeling off in sheets. You haven't tasted water in 5 days. Your tongue is swollen so large you can't close your mouth anymore. You're hallucinating your dead grandmother offering you lemonade. And somewhere, deep in the back of your dying brain, you know the truth: you're going to die out here. Alone. Forgotten. Buried under sand that no one will ever dig through. Now open your eyes. Because that nightmare, it actually happened. And the man it happened to didn't just survive 1 day like that. Or 5 days. Or even 10. He survived 40. This is the story of Mauro Prosperi. And I promise you, what this man endured will change the way you think about survival, willpower, and what a human being is truly capable of when death is staring them in the face. Let's go back to April 1994. Mauro Prosperi was 39 years old. An Olympic pentathlete. A marathon runner. A police officer from Sicily, Italy. Tough as nails. Disciplined. The kind of guy who ran 20 miles before breakfast just for fun. He was married. He had 3 children who adored him. And he was about to do something most people would consider completely insane. He was going to run the marathon des Sables. If you've never heard of it, let me paint you a picture. The Marathon des Sables is a 156-mile ultramarathon through the Sahara Desert in Morocco. That's 6 regular marathons back to back. Runners carry everything they need on their backs: food, sleeping gear, medical supplies. Race organizers only provide water checkpoints and emergency tents. Everything else? You're on your own. Temperatures during the race regularly hit 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Sometimes higher. Runners lose toenails. They hallucinate. They collapse. Some have died. But Mauro wasn't scared. He'd been training for over a year. He was ready. He kissed his wife and kids goodbye, flew to Morocco, and lined up at the starting line with 133 other runners from around the world. He felt invincible. The first 3 days of the race went perfectly. Mauro was running strong. He was pacing himself. Staying hydrated. Following the course markers. Other runners were dropping out left and right: heat exhaustion, blisters, dehydration. But not Mauro. He felt good. He felt confident. On the morning of day 4, he woke up energized. The next leg of the race was brutal, a 51-mile stage through some of the harshest terrain in the Sahara. But Mauro had conquered worse. He set off at sunrise, his shoes crunching against the endless expanse of sand and rock. And then, around midday, the sky changed. It started as a whisper. A gentle breeze. Then the breeze became wind. The wind became a roar. Within minutes, the entire horizon turned burnt orange. A sandstorm, a massive, monstrous wall of sand and wind, came screaming across the desert like the wrath of God. Mauro had never seen anything like it. The storm hit him like a freight train. Sand filled his nose, his mouth, his ears. He couldn't see 2 feet in front of him. He couldn't breathe. Visibility dropped to absolute zero. Most runners stopped immediately. They crouched low, covered their faces, and waited for it to pass. But Mauro made a choice. A choice that would define the rest of his life. He kept running. He thought he could navigate through it. He thought the course markers would guide him. He thought wrong. The storm lasted for 8 hours. When it finally died down and the air cleared, Mauro stopped running. He looked around. And his blood went cold. There were no flags. No markers. No footprints. No other runners. Nothing. Just sand. Endless, infinite sand stretching out in every direction like an alien planet. He pulled out his compass. The needle spun wildly, useless. The storm had completely disoriented him. He tried to retrace his steps, but every footprint had been erased. It was like the desert had swallowed all evidence that humans had ever existed here. Mauro Prosperi was lost. Completely, utterly, hopelessly lost in the largest hot desert on Earth. Let's pause here and talk about where he actually was. The Sahara Desert is 3.6 million square miles. That's almost as big as the entire United States. Temperatures during the day regularly exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit. At night, they plummet to near freezing. There's almost no water. No vegetation. No animals except scorpions, snakes, and the occasional vulture. If you get lost out here, the statistics are not in your favor. The Sahara doesn't forgive. It doesn't negotiate. It kills. And Mauro had just walked straight into its heart. He checked his supplies. One small bottle of water, maybe 500 milliliters. A handful of energy gels. Some salt tablets. A knife. A lightweight sleeping bag. A small flashlight. That was it. No GPS. No satellite phone. This was 1994, long before smartphones, before modern tracking technology. The only way anyone would find him was if search helicopters spotted him from the air. And the Sahara is so vast that searching for one man is like searching for a grain of sand on a beach. On the first night, Mauro wasn't too worried. He climbed to the top of a tall dune and scanned the horizon for lights, for campfires, for anything. Nothing. Just darkness. He wrapped himself in his sleeping bag and tried to sleep, but the cold was vicious. His body shivered violently. When the sun rose the next morning, he felt a flicker of hope. Surely the race organizers had noticed he was missing. Surely helicopters would come looking. He waited. No helicopters came. By noon, the heat was unbearable. Mauro took tiny sips from his water bottle. He knew he had to ration carefully. He started walking, choosing a direction based purely on instinct. He walked for hours. Every dune looked identical. Every horizon was empty. By evening, he'd covered maybe 10 miles. And he still had no idea where he was. On day 2, Mauro's water bottle was half empty. His lips started to crack. His mouth felt like sandpaper. He tried to stay calm, tried to think logically, but panic was creeping in. He climbed another dune and screamed as loud as he could. "Help! Someone help me!" His voice echoed across the emptiness and died. No one answered. No one heard. He was completely alone. Day 3. This was when things got bad. Really bad. Mauro's water ran out. Completely. He shook the bottle, hoping for one last drop. Nothing. His body was already showing signs of severe dehydration. His urine had turned dark brown. His skin was hot to the touch. His heart was racing. He knew what was happening. His organs were beginning to shut down. Desperate, he tried something he'd read about in survival manuals. He urinated into his empty water bottle and drank it. If you've never tasted urine, consider yourself lucky. It's warm, salty, acidic, and vile. Mauro gagged. He vomited. But he forced himself to drink it because the alternative was death. The problem? Urine is full of waste products your body is trying to expel. Drinking it only poisons you further. But Mauro didn't have a choice. He kept walking. His strategy now was to move during the early morning and late evening when the heat was slightly less murderous, and rest during the peak afternoon hours. He would bury himself in sand or crawl under rock outcroppings to escape the sun. But there was no escape. The heat found him everywhere. His skin turned bright red, then dark purple, then black. His lips split open like overripe fruit. Blood dripped down his chin, but he couldn't even lick it away because his tongue had swollen to twice its normal size. On day 5, Mauro saw something on the horizon. At first, he thought it was another hallucination. But as he got closer, he realized it was real. A building. A small stone structure rising out of the sand like a miracle. His heart exploded with hope. He stumbled toward it, crying, laughing, barely able to believe his luck. It was a marabou, a small Islamic shrine used by nomadic tribes as a place of prayer. It had 4 walls, a roof, and a doorway. Mauro fell through the entrance and collapsed on the floor, sobbing with relief. Finally. Shelter. Safety. But then reality set in. The shrine was abandoned. Completely abandoned. There was no water. No food. No people. Just dust, sand, and silence. Mauro searched every corner desperately. And then he found something. Hanging from the ceiling, covered in cobwebs, were 2 dead bats. Their bodies were dried out, mummified by the desert heat. Mauro stared at them. His stomach churned. But his body was screaming for moisture, for protein, for anything. He hadn't eaten in days. He was dying. So he made a choice. He grabbed the bats, bit into them, and chewed. The blood was warm and metallic. The meat was tough, stringy, rancid. He gagged with every bite, but he forced himself to swallow. He ate both bats completely, flesh, bones, wings, everything. When he finished, he sat in the corner of the shrine and wept. He'd been reduced to an animal. And he hated himself for it. Mauro stayed in the shrine for 2 days, too weak to move. He found a small puddle of stagnant water outside, a brownish, filthy pool filled with insects and what looked like animal feces. He knew drinking it would make him sick. He drank it anyway. Within hours, he was violently ill. Diarrhea and vomiting racked his body, draining what little moisture he had left. He curled up on the stone floor and prayed for death. But death didn't come. On day 8, Mauro forced himself to leave the shrine. He couldn't stay there forever. He started walking again, his body barely functioning, his mind slipping in and out of consciousness. He didn't know it at the time, but the sandstorm had blown him nearly 200 miles off course. He wasn't in Morocco anymore. He was deep in Algeria, in one of the most remote and unforgiving regions of the Sahara. A place where even nomadic tribes rarely traveled. A place where people vanished and were never found. By day 10, Mauro's brain started to break. He began seeing things. His wife appeared in front of him, smiling, holding out a bottle of ice-cold water. He reached for it, and she disappeared like smoke. His children ran past him, laughing, calling his name. He chased them across the dunes, screaming, crying, begging them to come back. But they were never there. The hallucinations became more vivid, more frequent. He saw entire cities shimmering in the distance, Rome, Paris, New York, complete with cars and people and streetlights. He walked toward them, and they vanished. His body was shutting down. His skin was black and cracked like charred wood. His feet were shredded, bleeding, infected. Every step was agony. But he kept moving. One foot in front of the other. Because stopping meant dying. And some stubborn, primal part of him refused to give up. On day 14, Mauro found another water source. A small, muddy pool hidden in a rocky outcropping. It was disgusting, green, slimy, filled with dead insects. But it was water. He drank until he vomited, then drank more. He stayed there for 3 days, too exhausted to move. By day 20, Mauro had lost all concept of time. He didn't know what day it was. He didn't know how long he'd been walking. His memories became fragmented, disjointed. He remembers crawling, falling, waking up half buried in sand. He remembers vultures circling overhead, waiting for him to die. And then he made a decision. He was going to kill himself. He couldn't do it anymore. The pain, the thirst, the loneliness, the endless, crushing hopelessness. He sat down in the sand, pulled out his knife, and pressed the blade against his wrist. He was ready. He was done. But when he dragged the blade across his skin, nothing happened. No blood. His body was so dehydrated, his blood had thickened into sludge. It wouldn't flow. He tried again. Nothing. He screamed. He sobbed. He stabbed the knife into the sand over and over in rage and despair. His body wouldn't even let him die. So he kept walking. Days 21 through 30 are a blur. Mauro doesn't remember most of it. His body moved on autopilot while his mind shut down. He remembers collapsing, crawling, drinking his own urine again, eating insects he found under rocks. His humanity had been stripped away. He was no longer a police officer, a husband, a father. He was just a dying animal trying to survive one more day. On day 32, something changed. Mauro saw footprints. Human footprints. Fresh ones. His heart, slow and weak, began to pound. He followed them with trembling hands and blurred vision. One step. Then another. He fell. Got up. Fell again. Kept moving. And then he saw her. A little girl. Maybe 9 or 10 years old. She was tending a small herd of goats near a cluster of rocks. She looked up and saw Mauro. And she screamed in terror. Mauro collapsed. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. His vocal cords were destroyed. His face was black, skeletal, unrecognizable. He looked like a monster. Like a corpse that had somehow learned to walk. The girl ran, and Mauro's heart shattered. He thought it was over. He lay in the sand, waiting to die. But then, minutes later, the girl returned. She brought her family with her, Tuareg nomads, Berber herders who had been traveling through the area. They stared at Mauro in absolute shock. They'd never seen anything like him. They thought he was a jinn, a desert spirit. But then they realized. He was human. Barely. But human. They gave him water. Just a few sips at first, too much would kill him. They wrapped him in cloth, carried him to their camp, and gave him goat's milk and bread. Mauro cried. He couldn't believe it. He was alive. He was saved. The nomads took him to a small Algerian military outpost 3 days later. The soldiers radioed for help, and within hours, a helicopter arrived. When the rescue team saw Mauro, they couldn't believe what they were looking at. This man had survived 40 days in the Sahara. Alone. With no food. No water. No supplies. He had walked over 300 miles through one of the deadliest places on Earth. When they airlifted him to a hospital, Mauro Prosperi weighed 97 pounds. He'd lost nearly 40 pounds. His liver was failing. His kidneys were barely functioning. His feet were so damaged doctors considered amputation. He was septic, delirious, hours away from total organ failure. But he survived. The physical recovery took months. The psychological recovery took years. Mauro had nightmares every night, dreams of endless sand, burning sun, dying of thirst. He would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, convinced he was still lost. His family had already held a memorial service for him. They'd mourned him. And now he was back, but he was different. Haunted. But here's the most insane part of this story. 10 years later, Mauro Prosperi returned to the Marathon des Sables. The same race. The same desert. The place that nearly killed him. And he finished it. When reporters asked him why he would ever go back, he said this: "The desert took everything from me. My strength. My sanity. Nearly my life. But it also taught me something no one else could teach me. I learned that the human body has limits. But the human will? The human spirit? That has no limits. I didn't survive because I was stronger or smarter or braver than anyone else. I survived because I refused to stop. Even when every cell in my body was screaming at me to lie down and die, I took one more step. And then one more. And that's all survival is. One more step. 40 days. No water. No food. No hope. 300 miles through hell. And still, he lived. So the next time you think you can't do something, the next time you want to give up, remember Mauro Prosperi. Remember that man crawling through the Sahara, drinking his own urine, eating dead bats, hallucinating his family, trying to kill himself and failing, and still taking one more step. Because that's what we're capable of. That's what lives inside every single one of us. The will to survive. The refusal to quit. The power to take one more step, even when it feels impossible. That's the most powerful force on earth.